Hi BookTube, it's Stephanie. Today I'm going to talk about some of the books that I'm not planning on reading at all, ever. But let's face it, never say never. And I'm going to start with the two books that I own, which makes it more silly. Why haven't I gotten rid of them? I actually don't know why. But the first one, this cover, I don't even need to say what it is. Yeah, I own it. This I got at the Bok- och biblioteksmässan in Göteborg. It's there every year at the end of September. And this basically had just been translated to Swedish, and they had a huge, huge box of them. And they were dirt cheap. So I got one, even though I kind of did not want to read it at that point. This, and let's face it, everyone who rereads it right now, they are like, so it's like, I will not read this, probably, ever. Now, the main reason why I didn't read this when this was like really hyped, because I was in the Harry Potter fandom, but at least in Sweden, I got the feeling that a lot of it was you either like Harry Potter or you like Twilight. And also, a lot of it were kind of like, oh, Harry Potter's for kids, this is for more mature people. Like Harry Potter is for children and Twilight was for teens. And I wanted to read Harry Potter. So I did not want to read this, and I have no idea why I own this. Like at all. Except, well, actually I do. It was cheap. Yeah. The next one I have, that I own and paid money for, is an omnibus of the Hunger Games trilogy. It's massive. I have actually read sections of this here and there when I heard some references. Again, this is the Swedish translation. This one I just wasn't into reading at all this during the phase of all these dystopians that like everyone has read on BookTube. I was in a huge reading slump and I didn't read anything. So otherwise, this one I probably would have read. It's definitely over Twilight. I would have read this one if I had been reading at least the first book. I don't know if I would have continued. But this one I got, again, it was cheap. It was 99 Swedish kronor for this omnibus. Again, never say never, but I probably won't read it. But if I feel like reading it sometimes or decide to do some kind of challenge, probably will get to this. Yeah, I just don't feel it. I really don't feel it. Let's go with a controversial one, and that's The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. The reason, first of all, this book is a contemporary. And if we go with a scale of 100, I will read this book now, to 0, never, ever, 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 which, let's face it, the books that end up on 0 is like books that I've already read and I'm like, I will never, ever, ever, ever reread you. But just being a contemporary means that my scale goes from 100, it goes to 20, like at best 20 automatically, just by being a contemporary. And the synopsis, either here or there for me. It's not like, oh, how interesting, and it's also not like, that doesn't sound like, it's just meh. It doesn't do anything for me. But a lot of people have read it. A lot of people, even people that are, as I am, mostly into fantasy and sci-fi, they have read it and they have loved it. So because of that, I got more and more interested in reading it. So I started to look up reviews, especially on Goodreads, but also on other places. And when I'm at a place where I'm like, should I read this because a lot of other people are reading it, I will read both good and bad reviews. Now, when I looked this book up, it had basically just come out and is just blown up. So all the good reviews were really good. Good representation. Black Lives Matter. Good. It's really good. Read it. Highly recommend. Modern classic. They were all exactly the same. None of them made me want to read it. Like, at all. The negative reviews, because they were negative in a very hyped and very popular book, they got so... I will get to that. But they had to be more specific. They had to be, this was what I didn't like, this was what I loved. For some people it was something as simple as, I just couldn't get into the writing. It didn't matter what they wrote. If they were white or had a picture of a white woman, because that was mostly what it was actually, white women, they were called racist. No matter what, they were called racist. And that was why that still sours my perspective. Let's ignore that. But even 2 years after me reading those reviews and those comments, there is no way I will read a book that if I do not like it, I will be called a bunch of names. I will, like 2 years after, and I'm still like, no. And it has nothing to do with the book. It has nothing to do with synopsis. It has to do with the community. And the thing is, the book has been out for 2 years now, so it probably is a lot better now, but it still sours everything for me, and I might read it one day, but the whole experience is basically extremely sour for me. I hope that was in any way, shape or form logical. I doubt it, but I hope it is. Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This one I had never heard of until the TV show were having all the trailers like all the time on YouTube. And I didn't at first even know it was a book. But when I found out that it was a book, I was like, yeah, we'll never read that. Because the trailer itself made me feel sick to my stomach. Why would I read a book that would also make me feel sick to my stomach? I wasn't going to watch the show, so why would I read a book? No. I can definitely understand people who love it, but as I said, just watching the trailer made me feel sick to my stomach. I wasn't going to do that to myself. The fifth book hasn't actually come out yet, and that's Docile. I don't remember the author from the top of my head right now, but I'm gonna put the cover up here probably, yeah, here. And just the whole premise, like I read the first page. Tor.com had a picture of it on their Instagram. It reads pretty good, but just the premise just makes me taking drugs so that you have to obey. Oh no, that you can see my hands just go like no, like an old woman, just like no. But what really bugs me is that I know that if I read that summary or that synopsis on a fan fiction, I might have read that fan fiction and it's one of those that I'm like, if that had been a fan fiction, as I said, I would have read it. 95% I would have read it. But I think that is because since it's a fan fiction, I know the characters. I know the characters. In this, I don't know anything, and it intrigues me so much. But taking drugs so that you have to obey, no, no, no. What are some of your books that you're like, nope, will not read at all? Do you own them? Like I apparently do, very clearly. Or is it just some book that you're just like, no, I won't read you, like at all, I don't want to? Please tell me down below. Bye.